She's just a girl, but she's on fire.
Hi, Ali Alvarez here, and today our topic is inspired action. And I have some amazing stories to share with you around inspired action. And I want to talk a little bit more about what this is and how powerful this can be in your life and how powerful it's been in my life. Inspired action really starts with setting an intention. From the intention is the foundation and the platform for inspired action. Because what happens is when we start to set the intention, then the universe can come in and say, I'm going to help, now I know what your intention is. Now I know what you want to do. I can help you get there. And that's how inspired action is created. So Wayne Dyer, I know I mention him a lot, right? He's just one of my peeps. Wayne Dyer, he talks about inspired action is that to be inspired is to be in spirit. And essentially that when we are inspired, our mind breaks through our limitations. It is the one time where we have access to the full resources of the universe when we are actually inspired. So, and David Wood talks about it in the way of connecting to the unconscious, right? Is that when we set our intention and when we can connect into the unconscious, we have access to so much more resources than we ever do if we're just plain small in our conscious field. So it is really the same thing as if you're stepping into inspired action, you have access to the database of the universe. It's the unlimited aspects and the unlimited possibilities. So there was a point in my journey, and I had kind of told you some of the stories in the past of when my husband and I had this focused time in our life when we set the intention of we're going to save money to be able to buy a home. I had noticed a contest being run by my bank, and it was a photo essay contest where you write an essay, 250 words, about what you're saving money for, how you're saving the money, and what you're going to do with it. And it was an essay connected with a photograph. And I thought, contest of skill, I love that. So I sat down and I said to myself, I'm going to win this. And I remember feeling that I was in this place of inspired action. I really focused in. I'd never done this with a contest before, where I read every word of the fine print of the rules and the regulations. I was so committed to winning this because I was like, $10,000 I could add to what we're saving, and it could bring us there so much quicker, right? So I end up writing a 250-word essay. And the theme of the contest was on the road to savings. And archetypes are really powerful. And that's something else that they talk about in the 15K formula is the power of archetypes, right? And I actually used an archetype in my submission for this contest, and the archetype was like the Wizard of Oz. Those are like sort of literary archetypes that we all can connect to, right? And so my submission was Dorothy and the Tin Men and the little dog Toto, and they were saving money to buy a condo up in Westchester. And so I had written this whole thing about, how Dorothy and the Tin Men are saving money, and Dorothy doesn't want to buy red shoes because she's, can't put it on the credit card, and they're really trying to save money to buy a house, so she can't, she has to cut back on the impulse purchases. And Toto comes in with his barking and talks about, how the annual percentage yield is really high and can help you save more money, the wisdom of the dog. So after we had written it, the other piece was the photograph, right? And the Wizard of Oz is all about, I'd watched the movie for inspiration and to try to figure out how to do this. The Wizard of Oz is all these painted backdrops, like most of the film, right? Like the way they did the films back then, so beautiful. And so I thought, I'm going to do a backdrop. I didn't really have the skill set or the time to paint it because I had to do it really quickly. So I thought, I'm going to do it like in a mosaic. So I ended up, my husband has done photography and stuff, so he has the big photo paper. So I took the big photo paper and I filled our tiny queen's apartment and it was like filled the entire living room. It's like our living space. And my husband was off 4 days on a film shoot working, and so I sat there in complete inspired action. I was in this place where I felt like I didn't want to sleep. Like all I wanted to do was build this and build this and build this. And I would buy wrapping paper and poster board, and I built, instead of the yellow brick road from the Wizard of Oz, it was the orange brick road, because ING Bank is orange. Their color is orange. So I built like the orange brick road and the whole Wizard of Oz theme, and I built the swirly road up through New York, the Palisades, the Hudson River, and up into Westchester, and I built the little condo that we wanted to buy. And the entire time I was working on it, and we had talked about in I think another video, and I talked about when you're not in your, when it's not just in your head, but when it's something that's in your, you can feel it in your body. That's how it felt when I was building this, when I was working on this, that I felt that it was something visceral in my body, that I was just driven to do it. And I just felt so inspired. Like I didn't really want to feel like eating. I didn't feel like sleeping. All I wanted to do was build this and work on this. And we won. I won the very top prize. And I get a call, like, I don't know, 2 months later, you're like, you were the winner. And I think back to that moment of my life when I was building this and setting that intention of, I want to win this. I'm going to win this. And pulling in and doing everything I could to make this happen, to make this a reality. And the feeling of the inspired action coming in to support my intention into making it a reality. All right, so that's my example of inspired action. I'm going to tell you one more story, which I think is really another really beautiful way to describe when we can tap into the resources of the universe and pull them in and work with them. It was a TED Talk from the woman who written, Elizabeth Gilbert, I believe, the woman who wrote Eat, Love, Pray. And it was an interview with her, and she's talking about her experiences writing that book and how she felt that there was a muse in the room and she could connect into this muse, and how this book just poured out of her. And you hear this a lot with great, like very popular books or popular movies, where there's a sense of it's not just the creator, there's a huge force behind that creator bringing this work into the world. Right? The Twilight series is another example of that. So here's Elizabeth Gilbert, and she's talking about her writing process, and she was actually starts to mention a poet that she loves. And this poet had lived probably around the turn of the century, early 1900s, and this woman poet would be out working in the field, and she would talk about how she could hear the poem coming in the wind. And she would look up from her work in the field, and she'd be like, oh, here comes the poem, and she'd quickly run home to try to beat the poem so that she could sit down and write it, because she knew that if she didn't pull that poem out of the ethers, that someone else would get it, and she wanted that to be her poem that she birthed into the world. So I think I just love that explanation of inspired action. Right? It's not just the doer. It's the doer connected to the collective unconscious at large. It's the doer connected to something greater than themselves and moving forward. And it's like when you feel like you have wind at your back. That is inspired action. So my gift to you, I hope that I've inspired you and that you can find your own wellspring of inspired action. Within Empower Network, we have a training, a resource product called the 15K Formula, and it teaches marketers, it teaches entrepreneurs how to create a $15,000 a month business online. And the very first module in this training is setting an intention, and it's David Wood sitting down with you, and he guides you through setting an intention. And what's so powerful about this is that time and time again, the testimonials coming back from people sitting down and just doing this first module in the 15K formula, so many people are like, that has changed my life. And they will sit down and actually take the time and focus, set the intention for what they want. And what happens so many times over and over again is many times within 90 days, people are actually seeing this intention come into reality. And that's a really, really powerful thing. And it's really about working with your mindset and setting an intention so that your subconscious and the universe can come in, back you up, and help you create what you want in the world. So if you're checking out Empower Network, I really, really highly recommend the 15K formula, because not only is it that first module, but there's at least like 20 other modules that have chock full of amazing, amazing training.